I woke up to HOA cutting my power at midnight. The sheriff arrived on my side. The silence woke me. Not a sound, but the absence of one. After 35 years as an electrician, you learn to hear electricity. The hum of a refrigerator compressor, the whisper of current through copper. The soft mechanical breathing of medical equipment keeping your wife alive. At 2:47 in the morning, all of it stopped. My eyes snapped open in the darkness. Total darkness. No glow from the alarm clock. No green light from the smoke detector. No steady pulse from Linda's oxygen concentrator. And then I heard it. The sound that will haunt me until the day I die. My wife gasping for air in the bed beside me. Bobby. Her voice was a rasp, barely there. Bobby, I can't. I moved faster than I had in 20 years. Muscle memory from decades of emergency calls kicked in before my brain fully caught up. Backup oxygen tank. Under the bed. Always under the bed. I grabbed it, fumbled with the valve in the dark, connected the tubing to her cannula. Breathe, honey. Slow breaths. I've got you. Her hand found mine in the darkness, gripping hard. Too hard. The grip of someone who thought she was about to die. The tank hissed. Her breathing steadied. But we both knew the backup only had 4 hours of oxygen. 4 hours between my wife and suffocation. I kissed her forehead. Stay calm. I'm going to find out what happened. I grabbed the flashlight from my nightstand, the one I've kept there since my first year on the job, and moved toward the front of the house. Through the living room window, I saw them, 2 silhouettes at my electrical panel. One holding a utility flashlight, the other with tools in his hands. I was out the front door before I could think about what I was doing. Barefoot, boxers, and a t-shirt. 61 years old and ready to kill someone with my bare hands. Hey, get away from my panel. They turned. The one with the flashlight had a reflective vest, the kind utility workers wear. The other one stepped back, and I saw the bolt cutters in his hand. Mr. Hawkins? The vest guy's voice was calm, practiced, like he'd done this before. Your service has been disconnected per HOA request. Outstanding violations. You can call the office in the morning to discuss payment arrangements. I stared at him. Then at my panel. The lock I'd installed myself was cut clean through. The main breaker was pulled. And the service line, the line that connected my house to the grid, had been professionally disconnected at the weatherhead. 35 years in this trade. I've seen every kind of disconnect there is. Emergency shutoffs after fires. Planned maintenance for upgrades. Delinquent account terminations with proper notice and legal procedure. Oh, this wasn't any of those. Do you know what you just did? My voice came out quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that comes before violence. My wife is on oxygen, 24 hours a day. She has exactly 4 hours of backup left because of what you just did. Vest guy shifted his weight. The other one, the one with bolt cutters, took another step back. Sir, we're just following orders. The HOA submitted a formal request through proper channels. There are no proper channels for cutting power to a home with life support equipment. That's not a code violation. That's attempted murder. I took a step toward them. They took a step back. Leave, now, and tell whoever sent you that Robert Hawkins knows exactly what a legal disconnect looks like. This wasn't one, and I'm going to prove it. They left. Fast. The van had no plates visible, but I memorized the make, model, and color before it disappeared down the street. Then I went back inside, restarted my generator, and spent the rest of the night watching my wife breathe. Every inhale felt like a gift. Every exhale felt like borrowed time. I didn't sleep. I just sat there in the darkness, holding her hand, listening to the generator hum outside the window, thinking about all the ways I was going to make someone pay for this. Because I knew something they didn't. I knew that what happened tonight wasn't random. It wasn't a mistake. It was the opening move in a war. And they had just picked the wrong enemy. To understand why they wanted me gone, you have to understand what I was sitting on. Not the house. The house was just wood and drywall, same as any other. What mattered was where it sat. I bought this lot in 1991 for $42,000. Back then, Lakeview Pines wasn't a neighborhood. It was a dream some developer had sketched on a napkin. 3 houses on a dirt road, surrounded by pine trees and possibility. Mine was the 4th. I picked the lot on the hill because Linda wanted to see the water. She'd grown up in Kansas, flat as a griddle, and the first time she saw a lake from a bedroom window, she cried. Actually cried. Said it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. So I built her a house where she could see it every day. I did most of the work myself, nights and weekends after my regular shifts. Took me 2 years, but I wired every outlet, hung every fixture, ran every cable with my own hands. The only part I didn't do was the foundation, some things you trust to specialists. The deck was Linda's idea. Wraparound, facing the water, wide enough for a table and chairs where we could eat breakfast and watch the sunrise paint the lake gold. We built it together, her holding boards while I drove screws, both of us covered in sawdust and laughing like kids. That was 33 years ago. Now she couldn't walk to that deck without help. COVID had taken her lungs, left her with scarring that would never heal. The doctors said the lake air actually helped. Something about humidity and oxygen absorption. The view gave her a reason to keep fighting. Our lot was different from the others. Corner position, 1.2 acres. And critically, the only elevated point on the entire eastern shore. When the developers came through in the 2000s and turned Lakeview Pines from a dirt road into a proper subdivision, they built around us. Had to. We were there first, but our lot blocked something valuable. The premium view. The angle that real estate agents call lakefront perspective and charge an extra $100,000 for. Every house behind ours had a partial view, a glimpse of blue between trees. Only our house had the full panorama. I never thought much about it. Land is land. We owned it, paid taxes on it, lived on it for 3 decades. What more was there to think about? Turns out, a lot. The HOA was established in 2004, 20 years after we moved in. We got a letter inviting us to join. I threw it away. We got another letter explaining the benefits of community standards. I threw that away too. Eventually, they stopped sending letters, but they never stopped wanting what we had. The morning after the disconnect, I didn't call the HOA. I called the power company first, demanded to know who authorized the shutoff. Got transferred 4 times before reaching someone who could actually check. Mr. Hawkins, I'm showing your account as current. No balance due. No disconnect order from our side. Then why was my power cut at 3 in the morning? Long pause. Typing sounds. Then, Sir, I'm seeing a flag on your account. Administrative hold placed by, it says here, external request. I don't have access to the details, but it's marked as coordinated with local governance. Local governance meaning what? I honestly don't know. This is above my access level. I can reinstate your service today, but you'll need to speak with our administrative office about the flag. That was enough for now. The power came back on at 11 a.m. Linda's concentrator hummed back to life. The backup tank still had an hour left. 1 hour between my wife and oxygen deprivation because someone wanted to make a point. At 2 p.m., I drove to the HOA office. Lakeview Pines Homeowners Association occupied a building that used to be a real estate office. Glass front, thin carpet, fake plants in the corners. The kind of place that looked professional until you spent more than 5 minutes inside. The receptionist, a young woman with nervous eyes, asked if I had an appointment. No, but I have questions about why someone cut my power last night with my wife on life support. I imagine someone here has answers. She made a call, whispered something, then, "Mr. Crawford will see you now." Dennis Crawford's office was at the back. Corner unit, big windows, golf trophies on a shelf. He stood when I entered, extending a hand like we were old friends. Late 50s. Tan that came from a salon, not the sun. Polo shirt that cost more than my first car. Smile that never reached his eyes. "Bobby, I've been hoping we could talk. Please sit down." I didn't take his hand. I didn't sit down. I just stood there, looking at him, letting the silence do my talking. His smile flickered. He withdrew the hand, gestured at a chair again. "Please, let's discuss this like adults. My wife almost died last night. I'm deeply sorry to hear that. What happened?" "Someone cut my power at 3 a.m. Someone wearing a utility vest. Someone who said they were acting on HOA orders." Crawford's expression shifted. Concern, perfectly calibrated. "That's terrible, but I assure you the HOA doesn't have authority over utility services. We're a homeowners association, not a power company." "Then explain this." I pulled out my phone, showed him the video I'd pulled from my security camera that morning. The two figures at my panel, the bolt cutters, the vest with the logo barely visible in the darkness. Crawford watched without expression. When it finished, he shook his head slowly. "I don't know who those people are, but I can tell you they don't work for us." Perhaps a case of mistaken identity or vandals posing as officials. The man said it was an HOA request. Direct quote. Then he was lying, or confused. "I really don't know what else to tell you, Bobby." He moved to his desk, opened a drawer, pulled out a manila folder. "However, since you're here, perhaps we should discuss the actual concerns we do have. Documented concerns." He slid the folder across the desk. I didn't touch it. "What's this?" "Your property has accumulated several violations over the past 18 months. I've tried sending letters, but..." He shrugged. "Sometimes direct conversation works better." I opened the folder. 4 pages of violations, each more absurd than the last. Grass height exceeding community standards. Mine was 4.5 inches. The limit was 4. Unapproved exterior signage. The medical alert sticker on my front door. Abandoned vehicle. Linda's car parked in our driveway for 30 days because she couldn't drive anymore. Visible medical equipment. Her oxygen tanks, apparently, were aesthetic violations because a neighbor could see them through our window. And at the bottom, a total, $23,000 in fines. I looked up at Crawford. He was still smiling. "Obviously, we understand Linda's situation is challenging," he said. "Nobody wants to make life harder for a sick woman. But rules are rules. Community standards exist for everyone. She's dying, which is exactly why I wanted to propose a solution." He leaned forward, elbows on desk, voice dropping like he was sharing a secret. "Between us, there are investors who would pay very well for a lakefront property with your view. Top dollar. Enough to get Linda the care she needs in a proper facility, somewhere with round-the-clock medical staff. You wouldn't have to worry about power outages or maintenance or any of it. You could finally relax." There it was. The pitch. All those violations, all that pressure leading to this moment. Sell your home. Give up your land. Take the money and disappear. I stood slowly. Crawford's smile faltered. Just a fraction. "Mr. Crawford," I said, keeping my voice level, "I've lived in this house for 33 years. I built half of it with my own hands. My wife planted roses out front the spring after we moved in. She's watched them bloom every year since. That view you're so interested in, It's the only thing she has left. The doctors said so. The lake air, the morning light, it's literally keeping her alive. I leaned forward, matching his posture. So here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take this folder home. I'm going to have a lawyer look at every single violation. And then I'm going to find out who really cut my power last night because someone knew she was on oxygen. Everyone in this neighborhood knows, which means someone decided that disconnecting power was worth the risk of killing her. Crawford's tan seemed paler now. I'm sure you're overreacting. I'm a licensed electrician. I've testified in court cases about improper disconnects. I know what the law says about cutting power to medically dependent households without proper notice and approval. And I know what it's called when someone does it anyway. I walked to the door, paused with my hand on the frame. Attempted manslaughter, that's what the prosecutor will call it. Have a nice day, Mr. Crawford. I left before he could respond, but I saw his face in the reflection of the glass door. He wasn't smiling anymore. For the next 3 weeks, they made my life hell. It started small, a notice about my mailbox being 3 inches too far from the curb, another notice about the color of my shutters, the same color they'd been for 30 years, a third notice claiming my driveway had cracks that posed a safety hazard. Then it escalated. The garbage truck started skipping our house. First once, then twice, then every week. I called the waste management company, got transferred to someone who apologized profusely but couldn't explain why our address had been flagged. Noise complaints appeared. Apparently, my generator, the one keeping my wife alive, was violating quiet hours. Even though it was the quietest model on the market, even though I'd installed a sound barrier around it, even though the nearest neighbor was 200 feet away. Then came the building inspector. Showed up unannounced, demanded to inspect my electrical work. I asked for his credentials, his authorization, the specific complaint that prompted the visit. He couldn't produce any of it. Just doing my job, Mr. Hawkins. Your job requires proper documentation. Come back when you have it. He left, but he came back 2 days later with a letter from the county. Formal complaint about unpermitted modifications. Someone had called in a tip about dangerous wiring in my home. I'd wired that house myself, every connection up to code, every permit properly filed. I had the paperwork to prove it because electricians keep records. We have to. One mistake, one shortcut, and people die. I spent 4 hours at the county office proving my work was legal. The clerk was apologetic, said the complaint was anonymous, but she'd make sure it was noted as unfounded. Meanwhile, my neighbors stopped talking to me. Not all of them, not at first, but I noticed the silence spreading like a disease. People who used to wave from their driveways suddenly didn't see me. The woman 2 houses down, who brought us casseroles when Linda first got sick, crossed the street to avoid passing our mailbox. So I found out why from Tom Riley, the only neighbor still willing to talk. He pulled up next to me one morning while I was checking the mail. Bobby, you should know, Crawford's been sending letters. What kind of letters? Anonymous ones. To everyone on the block, saying your property is lowering our home values. Saying you're refusing to cooperate with community standards. Saying you're... He hesitated. Saying you're unstable. Aggressive. That you threatened his life at the HOA office. I stared at him. I never threatened anyone. I know you, Bobby. But the new people, the ones who moved in after the development expanded, they don't know you. They just know what they're being told. He glanced around, nervous, like someone was watching. I heard something else. At the last board meeting, Crawford was talking about your property. Said it was a matter of time before you saw reason. Said he had ways of applying pressure that didn't leave fingerprints. What's that supposed to mean? Tom shook his head. I don't know, but be careful. This guy's connected. Utility company, county office, even some people at the sheriff's department. He's been building relationships for years. When he wants something, he usually gets it. He drove off before I could ask anything else. I stood at my mailbox, holding a stack of notices and threatening letters, thinking about fingerprints and pressure and my wife's oxygen tank running low every time the power flickered. That night, I installed more cameras, 4 of them covering every angle of my property, hardwired to a backup battery system I built myself. Motion-activated, night vision capable, with cloud storage so even if someone destroyed them physically, the footage would survive. Then I started keeping a log. Every violation notice, dated and photographed. Every missed garbage pickup, documented. Every suspicious vehicle that slowed near my house, recorded. I wasn't building a case yet. I was building an arsenal. The first real breakthrough came at 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday. I'd gotten into the habit of checking my cameras before bed. A ritual, like brushing my teeth. That night, one of the motion sensors triggered on the north side of my property, near the fence line. I pulled up the feed and saw a car parked on the access road behind my lot. Black SUV, tinted windows, running lights off. Just sitting there. I watched for 20 minutes. No one got in or out. Then another vehicle pulled up beside it. Pickup truck, company logo on the door. Even in the night vision footage, I could make out the name, Thompson County Power Cooperative. A man got out of the SUV. Even in the green-tinted footage, I recognized him, Sir Dennis Crawford. The truck door opened. Another man stepped out. They talked for several minutes, gesturing toward my property. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't need to. The body language was enough. One man giving orders, the other nodding. Then the truck man handed Crawford an envelope. Small, white, thick enough to suggest cash. Crawford pocketed it without looking inside. They shook hands. The truck drove off first. Crawford followed a minute later. I saved the footage to 3 different locations. Then I pulled up the Thompson County Power Cooperative website. Took me 20 minutes to find what I was looking for. A staff directory with photos. The man from the truck was Marcus Webb, utility manager, 22 years with the company. Direct oversight of service connections and disconnections. I had them. Not proof of the midnight disconnect, not yet, but proof of a relationship. Proof that Crawford was paying a utility manager cash in the middle of the night behind my property. But I needed more. I needed to know why. The answer came 3 days later, buried in county property records. I spent an afternoon at the Thompson County Courthouse, pulling every document I could find related to my neighborhood. Lot maps, development plans, transfer records, HOA incorporation papers. What I found made my blood run cold. In the past 18 months, 3 properties near mine had changed hands. All of them belonged to elderly residents. All of them sold for below market value, and all of them were purchased by the same buyer, Clearwater Vista Holdings, LLC. The name meant nothing to me, but the registered address did. It was the same address as Crawford and Associates, a law firm where Dennis Crawford was listed as managing partner. He wasn't just pressuring me to sell, he was buying up the entire block through a shell company. And my property, the one with the premium lake view, was the crown jewel he was missing. I dug deeper, found the development plans filed with the county 6 months earlier. A proposal for 12 luxury homes on the Eastern Shore, each one advertised with unobstructed water views. The proposal included a site map. My house wasn't on it. In its place was something labeled Community Commons, a small park with a gazebo. A public space that didn't require anyone's permission to build because the original property owner would be long gone. I sat in my truck outside the courthouse, staring at those plans, and felt something shift inside me. Not anger anymore, something colder, sharper. They weren't just trying to force me out. They were planning to erase me entirely. Bulldoze my home, pave over Linda's roses, replace 33 years of memories with a decorative gazebo for people who would never know we existed. And they were willing to kill my wife to do it. That's when I knew I needed help. Real help. Not lawyers, not yet. Someone with authority, someone who could make arrests. I needed the sheriff. I'd known Dale Hutchins for almost 15 years. We met at a veterans event, one of those mixers where they tried to get Navy guys and Army guys to stop arguing about who had it worse. Dale was Army. 2 tours in Iraq. Came home with a limp and a Bronze Star. I was Navy, served my time on carriers doing electrical work. Never saw combat, but spent enough time in the Gulf to earn my stripes. We weren't close friends, but we were the kind of friends who nod at each other in the hardware store and actually mean it. He knew Linda, knew she was sick, had brought his wife over with a casserole when the news first got out. Finding him was easy. Getting him to listen was harder. I caught him at the diner on Main Street, the one where all the county officials eat breakfast. He was alone in a corner booth, working through a plate of eggs and paperwork. Dale, got a minute? He looked up, surprised. Bobby, didn't expect to see you here. How's Linda? Alive, barely. Something in my voice made him set down his fork. He gestured at the seat across from him. That bad? I sat down, told him everything. The midnight disconnect, Crawford's meeting with Webb, the shell company, the development plans, the campaign of harassment designed to drive me out or kill my wife trying. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You have proof of all this? I pulled out my phone, showed him the footage of Crawford and Webb, the property records, the development plans with my house erased from existence. He watched the video twice. His jaw tightened. Bobby, I'm going to tell you something. My mother was on a ventilator the last 2 years of her life. Lung cancer. I moved back home to take care of her, put my career on hold, did everything I could to give her more time. He paused, staring at the table. One night, the generator failed. Power was out because of a storm and the backup didn't kick in the way it was supposed to. By the time I got to her room, he didn't finish. He didn't have to. 20 minutes, he said quietly. That's how long she was without oxygen. 20 minutes I'll never get back. Doctors said she didn't suffer, but I know that's something they say to make families feel better. He looked up at me, and I saw something in his eyes that I recognized, the same cold anger I'd been carrying for weeks. These people tried to do the same thing to Linda, deliberately, for money. Yes, that's not HOA overreach. That's not even fraud. That's attempted manslaughter. That's what I said. Dale pushed his plate aside. I need to make some calls. This is bigger than me. We're talking about a utility company manager and potentially county officials. But I have contacts at the state level, people who investigate corruption. How long? Give me a week. Maybe 2. I need to verify your evidence independently, build a case that'll stick. Crawford's connected, you're right about that. If we move too fast, he'll lawyer up and walk. And in the meantime, Dale reached across the table, gripped my arm. You keep documenting, everything, every notice, every vehicle, every face, and you keep Linda safe. If they try another disconnect, I've got 3 backup generators now, and cameras everywhere. Good. He stood, dropped cash on the table for his breakfast. Bobby, I want you to know something. What happened to my mother? It haunts me. I should have checked the generator. I should have been more careful. I carry that every day. He looked me in the eye. What these people are doing to you and Linda, it's everything I hate about this job. The powerful preying on the vulnerable, thinking they can get away with it because no one's watching. Well, I'm watching now, and I don't let people get away with things. He walked out. I sat there for another 10 minutes, feeling something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. The waiting was the hardest part. Every day I expected something. A visit from Dale with news, a new attack from Crawford, something to break the stalemate. Instead, I got silence. The harassment continued, but it was almost routine now. Notices about lawn height, complaints about my truck, letters threatening liens against my property. I filed each one, photographed it, added it to my growing stack of evidence. Linda noticed the change in me. She always could read my moods better than anyone. "You're planning something," she said one morning, watching me through the kitchen window as I adjusted one of the cameras. "Just being prepared, Bobby." Her voice carried that gentle warning she'd used on me for 35 years. "Don't do anything stupid." Define stupid. The kind of thing that ends with you in handcuffs. I came inside, sat beside her on the couch. She was having a good day, which meant she could sit upright for more than an hour without gasping. The oxygen tube curled across her cheek, but she'd learned to ignore it. "Linda, these people tried to kill you." "I know. They're trying to take our home, the home we built together, the view you love, everything we've worked for." "I know that too." She took my hand, her grip weaker than it used to be, but still steady. "But I also know you. When you get that look in your eyes, you're not thinking about lawyers and lawsuits. You're thinking about making someone pay." I didn't answer. She was right, and we both knew it. "Promise me something," she said. "Whatever you're planning, whatever you're going to do, make sure you stay on the right side of the law. I need you here. Not in prison, not in a grave, here with me for however long I have left." Her eyes were wet. Mine probably were too. "I promise." She nodded, satisfied. Then, "Now tell me the plan." I told her everything. The cameras, the recordings, Dale's investigation, the shell company, the development plans. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. Then she smiled, which wasn't the reaction I expected. "Those idiots," she said. "They really thought they could bully a man who spent 35 years working with electricity. Someone who knows every code, every law, every way to document a violation. Someone who literally taught inspectors how to find problems. They underestimated me. They underestimated us." She squeezed my hand. "Bobby, I can't fight this with you. Not physically, but I can be your witness. Everything you document, everything you record, I'll sign statements confirming it. Let them try to say an old man made it all up. They'll have to call a dying woman a liar. Linda, don't tell me to stay out of it. This is my home too, my roses, my view. If they want to take it, they'll have to fight both of us." I kissed her forehead, the way I had the night of the disconnect, the way I'd kissed her every day for 35 years. "We'll get them," I said. "I promise." She smiled again. She smiled again. "I know. Now go check your cameras. I want to watch the sunset." I helped her to the deck, settled her in her chair with a blanket and her oxygen tank. Then I went back inside and did what she told me to do. Checked the cameras, logged the day's footage, added 3 more violation notices to the stack, and waited. The next few days were the longest of my life. I kept myself busy, fixed the fence post that had been leaning since last winter, replaced the weather stripping on the back door, cleaned the gutters, reorganized the garage, did all the little maintenance tasks that pile up when you're spending every waking moment fighting for survival. But mostly, I watched. I watched the road for suspicious vehicles. I watched the property line for intruders. I watched Linda breathing, counting each inhale like it might be the last. The cameras recorded everything. 3 terabytes of footage by the end of the first week. Mostly nothing. Just squirrels and deer and the occasional lost driver turning around in my driveway. But sometimes I'd catch glimpses of the enemy. A slow-moving car with tinted windows, a utility truck that stopped at the end of the block for no apparent reason, A figure walking along the tree line at dusk, just far enough away to claim they were on public property. They were watching me. Waiting. Trying to figure out why I hadn't cracked yet. I wanted to tell them. I wanted to walk up to that slow-moving car and tap on the window and explain exactly why they were wasting their time. You don't break a man by threatening him. You break him by taking away everything he loves. But I'd already lost almost everything. My career was behind me. My kids had moved across the country. My friends had drifted away, the way friends do when you spend all your time caring for a sick spouse. All I had left was Linda and this house. The two things I'd fight to the death to protect. They couldn't take Linda from me without committing murder. And after the first failed attempt, they had to know I was watching for exactly that. So they settled for harassment. The slow squeeze. The death by 1,000 cuts. Every day, a new notice appeared in my mailbox. Every day, the fines increased. Every day, the pressure mounted. And every day, I documented it all. Tuesday, notice of violation for excessive bird activity near my property. Apparently, the feeders Linda had set up were attracting too many sparrows, which constituted a nuisance. Wednesday, notice of violation for improper storage of recreational equipment. Translation: my fishing poles were visible through the garage window. Thursday, notice of violation for unapproved landscaping modifications. I had planted 3 tomato plants in my backyard garden. Friday, notice of violation for failure to maintain consistent exterior lighting. One of my porch bulbs had burned out, and I hadn't replaced it within their arbitrary 48-hour window. Each notice came with a fine. Each fine was larger than the last. By the end of the week, I owed them another $12,000 that I had no intention of paying. But the worst part wasn't the money. It was the isolation. Nobody came to visit anymore. The neighbors who used to wave now looked the other way. The mail carrier, who'd been delivering to this address for 15 years, suddenly couldn't make eye contact. I understood. Crawford had poisoned the well, made me radioactive, made it clear that anyone who associated with the Hawkins family would face the same treatment. It worked on most people. Most people have jobs to protect, families to consider, mortgages to pay. Most people can't afford to fight City Hall. But I wasn't most people. I was a man with nothing left to lose and a very specific set of skills. They'd learn that soon enough. One night, about 10 days after meeting with Dale, I was sitting on the deck with Linda. The sun had set an hour ago, and the lake was a sheet of black glass reflecting the stars. "Remember our first summer here?" she asked. I smiled. "You mean when the air conditioning broke and we slept on this deck for 3 nights? It wasn't that bad. You complained about the mosquitoes. I complained about you snoring." She laughed, then coughed, then laughed again. The oxygen tube bobbed against her cheek. "I can't believe it's been 33 years. 34 in November. We should do something special." "Like what?" She was quiet for a moment, watching the stars. "Like still being alive. Like still being together, like winning this stupid fight." I reached over, took her hand. Her skin was thin now, almost papery. I could feel every bone. "We're going to win," I said. "I promise." "I know." She squeezed my fingers. "I've never seen you lose when you really wanted something. Not once in 34 years. I wanted you, and you got me. Best decision I ever made." She turned to look at me, and even in the darkness I could see her smile. The same smile that had knocked me flat at a company picnic in 1989. The same smile that had walked down the aisle toward me a year later. The same smile that had greeted me every morning for over 3 decades. "Bobby Hawkins," she said, "I love you. I love you too." We sat there until the cold drove us inside. Then I helped her to bed, checked her equipment, and took my place by the security monitors. Watching, waiting, planning. The break came at 9:17 on a Thursday morning. Dale called from a blocked number. "Bobby, meet me at the old fire station on Route 12. 1 hour. Come alone, and don't tell anyone where you're going." The old fire station had been closed for years, replaced by a newer facility closer to the highway. It sat at the end of a gravel road surrounded by overgrown fields and rusted equipment. Dale was waiting inside, leaning against a dust-covered desk. With him were two people I didn't recognize. A woman in a dark suit and a younger man with a laptop. "Bobby Hawkins, this is Special Agent Dana Morris from the State Attorney General's office and Kevin Chen from their Digital Forensics Division. They've been looking into Thompson County Power for several months. Your case connects to something much bigger." Agent Morris shook my hand. "Mr. Hawkins, Sheriff Hutchins shared your evidence with us. We've been investigating Marcus Webb for over a year, but we didn't have proof of the connection to HOA corruption until now." "What kind of investigation?" She opened a folder, spread photos across the desk. Satellite images of developments, corporate documents, financial records. Webb has been accepting payments to manipulate service records for years. Priority connections for developers who pay, delayed repairs for properties someone wants to devalue. And in at least 2 cases we can prove, deliberate disconnections that resulted in fatalities. My stomach dropped. Fatalities. An elderly man in Ridgeview, 2 years ago. Power cut during a heat wave. No one checked on him for 3 days. And a woman in Pine Hills last summer, medically dependent, like your wife. Her family was told it was a computer error. I thought about Linda gasping in the darkness. 4 hours of backup oxygen, the terror in her voice. They killed people. We believe so, but proving intent has been difficult. Webb is careful. He uses intermediaries, shell companies, paperwork that looks legitimate until you dig. That's why your evidence is so valuable, Mr. Hawkins. You caught him on camera, taking money from Crawford, behind your property, the same night someone tried to disconnect your wife's life support. Kevin Chen turned his laptop toward me. We've also found communications between Webb and Crawford going back 18 months. Emails, texts, coded messages. They're careful, but not careful enough. There's a clear pattern of coordination around the properties that Clearwater Vista Holdings acquired. How many properties? 7 that we can confirm. All belong to elderly or vulnerable residents. All sold below market value within 6 months of experiencing utility issues. Your property would have been the 8th. Agent Morris closed the folder. Mr. Hawkins, we want to move on Crawford and Webb, but we need one more piece of evidence. Something that directly ties them to the attempted disconnection at your home. The camera footage shows them meeting, but we can't prove what they discussed. We need a confession, or at least something close to it. I looked at Dale. He nodded slightly. You want to use me as bait? Not exactly. We want to give Crawford an opportunity to incriminate himself. You've been documenting his harassment for weeks. If you continue to resist, he'll escalate. He always does. And when he does, we'll be watching. And Linda, what about her safety? We'll have deputies stationed nearby around the clock. If anyone approaches your property, we'll know. Your generators will stay connected. Nothing will happen to your wife. I thought about it. The risk, the reward, the chance to finally end this. What do you need me to do? Agent Morris smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the smile of a hunter who'd finally spotted her prey. Just keep being yourself, Mr. Hawkins. Keep refusing to sell, keep documenting, keep making Dennis Crawford angry. And then we catch him doing what he always does when people don't cooperate. We catch him trying to kill them. They tried again on a Monday night. The weekend before, I'd had a strange visitor. An older woman, maybe 70, driving a car I didn't recognize. She pulled into my driveway, sat there for a full minute, then got out and walked slowly toward my porch. I met her at the door, one hand near the phone in my pocket. "Mr. Hawkins." Her voice was hesitant, nervous. "Yes? My name is Margaret Chen. I used to live 2 streets over, in the blue house on Lakeside." The name meant nothing to me, but I noticed her hands were shaking. "Would you like to come in?" She did. I made coffee. She sat at my kitchen table and told me a story that made my blood run cold. It was 3 years ago. My husband was on dialysis, home unit. We couldn't afford the treatments at the hospital, so we did them ourselves. It was working fine until... She stopped, took a breath. Until the power went out. In the middle of a session, the machine just stopped. I waited. I knew what was coming. He was connected when it happened. The blood, There was no backup. By the time I got him disconnected and tried to call 911, he was already... The stress on his heart. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. They told me it was a random outage, a squirrel on a transformer, but the next week, I got an offer on my house. Way below market value, and the man who came to my door, he said he was with an investment group. He said it would be a shame if I had any more electrical problems. "Crawford," she nodded. "I didn't know his name then. I just knew I was scared. I sold. I moved. I tried to forget." "Why are you here now?" "Because I heard what they're doing to you, and I heard what you're doing back." She looked at me, and there was something fierce in her eyes. Something that had been buried for 3 years and was finally clawing its way to the surface. "I want to testify. I want to tell everyone what they did to my Harold. I want them to pay." I took her hands in mine. "Mrs. Chen, Margaret, I promise you they're going to pay. All of them. You really believe that?" "I know it." She stayed for an hour, told me everything. Names, dates, details. I recorded it all with her permission. When she left, she looked like a different person. Lighter, like she'd been carrying a weight for years and finally set it down. I added her testimony to my evidence file, called Dale immediately. "We have another witness," I told him, "another victim, another death." He was quiet for a long moment. Then, "Bobby, I think it's time. We have enough. Let's end this." "How?" "Same way we planned. We let them come to you, and this time, we catch them in the act." I'd been waiting for 3 weeks. Dale's deputies were stationed at the end of my street, disguised as a cable repair crew. Agent Morris had surveillance equipment in an unmarked van 2 blocks away. Kevin Chen was monitoring my camera feeds in real time from a mobile command unit. And I was sitting in my living room, lights off, watching the security monitors like a hawk watching a rabbit hole. Linda was in the bedroom, connected to her concentrator, with a backup tank beside the bed and a third in the closet. I'd installed redundant wiring on everything critical. Even if they cut the main power, the backups would kick in within seconds. At 2:34 a.m., the motion sensor on my north fence triggered. I pulled up the feed. A figure, dressed in dark clothes, moving along the tree line. Then another, following behind. They were staying low, avoiding the obvious camera angles. They didn't know about the hidden cameras. I watched them approach my electrical panel. The first one carried a bag. The second one carried tools. They moved like they'd done this before because they had. I sent a text to Dale. 2 words. "They're here." His response came immediately. "We see them. Wait for the signal." I waited, watched. The first figure reached the panel, started to work on the lock. The second one kept watch, head on a swivel. Then my phone buzzed again. "Go." I hit the switch I'd installed 3 days earlier. Custom work, just for this occasion. Every floodlight on my property blazed to life simultaneously. The front yard lit up like a football stadium. Both figures froze. Then they ran. They didn't get far. Sirens erupted from both ends of the street. Headlights flooded the road. Deputies appeared from the cable truck, weapons drawn. Agent Morris's van pulled into my driveway, blocking the only exit. I walked out onto my porch, still in my bathrobe, and watched them catch the first man 50 feet from my fence. He went down hard, face in the dirt, hands behind his back. The second one made it to the tree line before 2 deputies tackled him. Dale walked up to me, satisfaction written across his face. Got them. Who are they? Let's find out. We walked to where the deputies had the first man pinned. Dale crouched down, shined his flashlight in the man's face. Well, well, Marcus Webb, long time no see. Webb spat dirt. I want a lawyer. I'm sure you do. Dale stood, nodded to his deputies. Get him in the car. The second man was younger, mid-20s, terrified. He started talking before anyone even asked. It wasn't my idea. Webb said it was legal. He said the HOA had authority. Dale looked at me. Same story your midnight visitors told, wasn't it? Word for word. Agent Morris appeared beside us. Mr. Webb, you're under arrest for criminal tampering, reckless endangerment, and attempted manslaughter. We have recordings of you accepting bribes from Dennis Crawford. We have communications proving you coordinated attacks on vulnerable residents. And we have 2 witnesses who will testify that you ordered tonight's operation. Webb's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Crawford has nothing to do with... Save it. Morris gestured to her team. Take him in. I watched them load Webb into a patrol car. Watched them cuff the younger man and put him in a separate vehicle. Watched the lights flash against my house, the house I'd built with my own hands, the house they'd tried to take from me. Then Dale touched my shoulder. Bobby, there's one more stop to make. Crawford? Crawford. I smiled. Good. We reached Dennis Crawford's house at 3:15 a.m. It was exactly what I expected. A 6-bedroom mini-mansion on the lake, the kind of house that architects design to impress neighbors rather than shelter families. Stone facade, 3-car garage, professional landscaping that probably cost more than my first house, and one particular detail I noticed immediately. His property had the same lake view as mine. He'd positioned himself to watch the sunrise over the water, just like Linda did. But he wanted more. He always wanted more. Dale parked first. Agent Morris pulled in behind him. A 3rd car, unmarked, stopped at the base of the driveway. Lights started going on in neighboring houses, people looking through windows, wondering what the commotion was about. Perfect. We walked to the front door. Dale knocked, loud, authoritative. The knock of someone who wasn't going away. 30 seconds. Nothing. He knocked again. Dennis Crawford, Sheriff's Department, open the door. A light flickered on upstairs. Shadows moved behind a curtain. Then footsteps, stumbling, hurried. The door cracked open. Crawford peered out, confusion and fear warring on his face. He was wearing silk pajamas, monogrammed with his initials. His hair was wild, his eyes puffy from sleep. What the hell is going on? Do you know what time it is? Yes, sir, Dale said. It's 3:17 a.m., the same time your associates tried to cut power to Robert Hawkins's home for the 3rd time, the same time they tried to kill his wife. Crawford's face cycled through a dozen expressions in 3 seconds. Shock, confusion, denial, fear. I don't know what you're... Dennis Crawford, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit manslaughter, criminal tampering, fraud, and reckless endangerment. Dale stepped forward. Crawford stepped back. More lights came on in neighboring houses. Someone was filming from their front porch. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, one will be provided for you. This is outrageous. Crawford's voice cracked. I'm calling my lawyer. Do you have any idea who I am? Dale took out his handcuffs. Yeah, you're the guy who tried to kill a woman for a lake view. Now you're the guy going to prison in his pajamas. The cuffs clicked shut. Crawford twisted, struggling, face red with rage. I'll sue every one of you. This is illegal. You can't do this. Actually, Agent Morris said, stepping forward with her badge visible. We can. We have recorded evidence of you paying Marcus Webb to coordinate attacks on medically vulnerable residents. We have documentation linking your shell company to 7 suspicious property acquisitions, and we have testimony from your accomplice, who is currently explaining exactly how this operation worked. Crawford's struggles stopped. His face went slack. Yeah, Morris continued. Webb's talking. Turns out he's more afraid of prison than he is loyal to you. Funny how that works. Dale guided Crawford toward a waiting patrol car. The neighbors were out in force now, watching, whispering, recording. The same neighbors who'd ignored me for months, the same neighbors who'd believed Crawford's lies about dangerous property and unstable residents. Now they were watching their HOA president marched past them in silk pajamas, hands cuffed behind his back, sputtering threats that no one was listening to. I stood on Crawford's lawn, the lawn he'd maintained to HOA standards while trying to destroy my home, and watched him go. He caught my eye just before they put him in the car. Pure hatred. Pure disbelief. The look of a man who genuinely couldn't understand how this had happened. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. But I thought it. You thought I was just an old man with a sick wife. You thought I'd be easy. You thought you could bully and threaten and disconnect your way to victory. You forgot something important. I spent 35 years learning how systems work. Electrical systems, legal systems, power systems. I know where every wire runs. I know every code, every regulation, every point of failure. You weren't fighting a helpless victim. You were fighting someone who knows exactly how to shut things down and how to make sure they never turn back on. The trial took 4 months. I attended every day. Linda came when she could, which wasn't often. Her health had stabilized, but she tired easily. The doctors said stress wasn't helping, but she refused to stay home. I want to see his face, she told me. I want him to know that the woman he tried to kill is watching him fall. She got her wish. The prosecution laid out the case methodically. Emails between Crawford and Webb discussing which properties to target. Financial records showing payments from Clearwater Vista Holdings to Webb's personal accounts. Development plans that explicitly called for acquiring my property through alternative means. And then there were the victims. The state brought in families of the 2 people who died because of Webb's disconnections. The elderly man in Ridgeview, the medically dependent woman in Pine Hills. Their children testified about discovering their parents, about the grief that never quite went away. When the prosecutor asked if they could identify the person responsible for coordinating these attacks, both pointed at Crawford. He sat at the defense table in an expensive suit, trying to project confidence, but I saw his hands shaking. I saw him flinch every time a new piece of evidence was introduced. His lawyer tried everything. Claimed the emails were fabricated. Claimed Webb was acting alone. Claimed Crawford was a victim of political persecution. The jury didn't buy any of it. I testified on the 3rd week. Walked the court through every violation notice, every harassment, every midnight attack. Showed them the footage of Crawford and Webb meeting behind my property. Explained in technical detail exactly how someone had tampered with my electrical system. Mr. Hawkins, the prosecutor asked, what would have happened to your wife if you hadn't woken up the night of May 23rd? I looked at Linda in the gallery. She was watching me, oxygen tube curled across her cheek, eyes steady. She would have died. The backup tank I keep by the bed has 4 hours of oxygen. By morning, it would have been empty. She would have suffocated in her sleep next to me, while I didn't even know anything was wrong. And how does that make you feel? I turned to face Crawford directly. He tried to hold my gaze, then looked away. Every time I close my eyes, I hear her gasping. Every time I check her equipment, I remember the silence that night. Every time I see her struggling to breathe, I wonder how many more days she has because of what he did. I paused. The courtroom was silent. He didn't just try to take my house. He tried to take the last years of my wife's life, the last sunrises she'll ever see, the last roses she'll ever smell, the last breaths she'll ever take. He tried to steal all of it. For money. For a lake view, for 12 luxury homes that nobody needed. The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Crawford's lawyer declined to cross-examine. Smart move. Anything he asked would have made it worse. The verdict came on a Friday afternoon. The courtroom was packed. Standing room only. People who'd never met Linda or me were there to watch Crawford fall. Some of them were other victims, people who'd lost property or loved ones to his schemes. Others were just citizens who'd read about the case and wanted to see justice done. When the jury filed back in, nobody was breathing. Crawford sat rigid at the defense table, his expensive suit slightly rumpled for the first time since the trial began. His lawyer was whispering something, but Crawford wasn't listening. The judge asked if the jury had reached a verdict. The foreman stood. Said yes. Guilty on all counts. Conspiracy to commit manslaughter. Criminal tampering. Fraud. Reckless endangerment. Theft by deception. The courtroom erupted. Someone cheered. Someone else started crying. Linda grabbed my arm so hard it hurt, but I didn't mind. I didn't mind anything in that moment. Crawford stood motionless as the judge read the charges. His lawyer whispered something to him. He didn't respond. Marcus Webb, who had testified against Crawford in exchange for a reduced sentence, was already in state prison. 4 years, with parole possible after 2. Not enough, but better than nothing. Crawford faced the judge for sentencing a month later. His lawyer asked for leniency, citing his community service and previously clean record. The prosecutor pointed out that his community service was a cover for systematic fraud, and his clean record was only clean because no one had caught him. Yet, the judge agreed. Mr. Crawford, you used your position of trust to prey on the most vulnerable members of your community. You targeted the elderly, the sick, and the dying because you believed they couldn't fight back. You conspired to cut off life-sustaining equipment in the middle of the night, knowing that your actions could result in death. She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. This court sentences you to 6 years in federal prison. Additionally, you are ordered to pay restitution in the amount of $500,000 to the Hawkins family for damages, and an additional $200,000 to be distributed among the other victims of your scheme. Crawford's face went gray. His lawyer started to object, but the judge silenced him with a look. Furthermore, you are permanently barred from serving in any position of community leadership, including homeowners associations, neighborhood boards, or civic organizations. You have demonstrated that you cannot be trusted with power over others. She struck her gavel. Court is adjourned. I watched them lead Crawford away. He didn't look back, didn't try to say anything. Just shuffled toward the door like a man who'd finally realized that his life was over. Linda squeezed my hand. It's done. Not quite, I said. One more thing. The civil suit was almost anticlimactic. Clearwater Vista. Holdings had been dissolved the day Crawford was arrested, but the assets were still there. The properties they'd acquired through fraud. The development funds, the bank accounts in Crawford's name. Our lawyer, a young woman named Sarah Chen, who'd taken the case pro bono because she was tired of watching rich people steal from old people, tore through their defenses in 3 days. In the end, we were awarded $500,000. It wouldn't bring back the years of stress, wouldn't undo the nights I spent watching Linda breathe, wouldn't erase the memory of her gasping in the darkness. But it would pay for her medical care. Would pay for the home modifications she'd need as her condition progressed. Would pay for the best oxygen equipment money could buy. And it would pay for something else. Something I'd been planning since the night they first cut my power. 6 months after the trial, I stood on my deck, watching the sunrise over the lake. Linda was beside me, wrapped in a blanket, breathing easily through the new portable concentrator we'd bought with the settlement money. Her roses were blooming, red and pink and white, climbing the trellis I'd built the summer after we moved in. 33 years of growth, 33 years of memories, still reaching toward the light. "You never told me what you were doing out there," she said, nodding toward the front yard. I smiled. "Come see." I helped her to her feet, guided her slowly down the deck stairs and around to the front of the house. The new sign was right where I'd placed it, mounted on a post I'd sunk myself. She read it aloud. "Private property. Owner is a licensed electrician. Wife is a cancer survivor. Sheriff is on speed dial. Think twice." She laughed. Actually laughed the way she used to before the sickness, before the fear, before the long nights wondering if we'd wake up in the morning. "You're ridiculous." "I'm thorough." She leaned into me, her weight light against my shoulder. "We won, didn't we?" "Yeah, we won." The lake shimmered in the morning light. Somewhere, a bird was singing. The same birds they'd tried to find me for feeding. The irony wasn't lost on me. We stood there for a while, watching the sun climb over the lake. The same view we'd fallen in love with 33 years ago. The same view they'd tried to take from us. It was still ours. Later that day, Dale Hutchins stopped by. He brought his wife, Maria, and a bottle of champagne that he admitted he'd been saving for a special occasion. "Thought you'd want to know," he said, popping the cork. "The state passed new legislation last week. They're calling it Linda's Law." I looked at him. "What does it do?" "Makes it a felony to disconnect utilities to any residence with registered medical equipment without explicit authorization from a judge. Automatic charges of reckless endangerment at minimum. Attempted manslaughter if the resident is harmed." Linda's eyes went wide. "They named it after me." "The sponsor said he read about your case, said it never should have happened, and he wanted to make sure it never happens again." I poured the champagne into glasses, handed one to Linda, one to Dale, one to Maria. "To Linda," I said. "Who taught me that stubborn is just another word for survivor?" We drank. That night I lay beside my wife in the darkness, listening to the familiar hum of her oxygen concentrator. The sound that used to terrify me now felt like a lullaby, proof that she was still here, still breathing, still fighting. "Bobby?" Her voice was soft, half asleep. "Yeah. Thank you." "For what?" "For not letting them win. For not giving up. For being exactly as stubborn as I always knew you were." I reached out, found her hand in the darkness, held it the way I'd held it every night for 35 years. "Never," I said. "Not ever." She was asleep within minutes. I stayed awake a little longer, watching the moonlight filter through the curtains, thinking about everything we'd been through. They thought I was just an old man with a sick wife. They thought the house was just property. They thought the view was worth more than a human life. They were wrong about all of it. The house was never just property. It was 33 years of memories. It was Linda's roses and our deck and the bedroom where we'd raised our children. It was the place where she wanted to spend her last days, looking at the lake she'd loved since the first moment she saw it. And I was never just an old man. I was an electrician with 35 years of experience, a veteran who'd served his country, a husband who would do anything to protect his wife. They made the mistake of thinking that power was something you could cut with bolt cutters and control with paperwork. They didn't understand that real power, the kind that matters, comes from knowing exactly what you're fighting for. I knew what I was fighting for. Her name was Linda, and she was worth every sleepless night, every legal battle, every moment of fear and fury that had brought us to this place. The place where we could finally rest. The place we would never, ever leave. I closed my eyes. The oxygen concentrator hummed. Outside, the lake reflected the stars. Home. We were finally home. And no one was ever going to take that away from us again.